Okay, good morning everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Before I introduce our panel, I'm going to do the typical housekeeping for you. So please remember, if you've got your mobile phones, can you turn them to silent for us? However, do keep your phones out because we would like you to use social media. Please do post across your different social platforms using the hashtag Inspiring Food Careers and tagging in Food Matters Live. So we have got some roaming mics. So after the panel have started to have a chat, if you've got any questions, do put your hand up and somebody will bring a mic over to you so you can ask lots of questions to our wonderful panel that we've got for you. Now, we're not expecting any fire alarms, so therefore if it does go, chances are it's real. So leave your stuff behind, stand up nicely, and make your way out of the auditorium and follow the staff to direct you out to the nearest exit. Okay, so this morning we have got 3 speakers for you. Unfortunately, Kirsty can't be with us today because she's come down with COVID. But we have 3 speakers here who will do their best to inspire you with their careers. And they're going to talk to you about what a career in food and nutrition really looks like. So we have got Corinne. Corinne is the founder of Chickpea Marketing, which is a freelance nutrition and marketing consultancy that she's just established. We've got Ruth, who is the company dietitian at Anglia Crown, which produce chilled and frozen meals. And then we've got Mariam, who is the senior research scientist at Meatless Farm, who are making plant-based meat alternatives. So a nice variety of different careers within the sector of the food industry for you. So I'm going to start you off with one of actually, tell us about what you do. We want to know, what's a typical day or week look like for you? So we start with you, Mariam.
Yeah, sure. Well, a typical day. So where I work, given how young our company is, no 2 days are the same, which is the fun part about it, because you are always thinking, always evolving, but it usually involves meetings, a lot of reading and research, because that's what I do. But I spend a lot of my time, I'd say maybe about 60% of my time in our development lab, because we have to make a new product, so it's testing ingredients, speaking to suppliers, and understanding better the technology that will take the industry forward and take our brand forward. So that's what a typical day is for me.
Yeah, Corinne, quite a different sector for yourself.
Yeah, your day sounds super interesting. So a bit of a change for me recently. I've actually just launched, as you said, my own marketing and nutrition consultancy. So at the moment, there's a lot of variety in my work. So the majority of it is kind of working with different types of brands on their marketing strategy. So that could be kind of, events, social media, campaigns, and various tactics within the marketing strategy. So yes, lots of variety. Different brands have different needs, and so it could be anything from going to the office to meet a client, and then or maybe having a meeting with them kind of at home, and then. On the side of that, I actually am the chair of the BDA Industry Specialist Group, so that's going to be launching hopefully this month. And so my week at the moment is very much kind of taken up with that side of things. So setting up the group, working with the committee, and thinking about our strategic objectives kind of for the next 2 years. So that's been a really exciting journey as well.
Ruth.
Yeah, so I work as company dietitian for Anglia Crown, who are a food manufacturer for healthcare. So our main customer is the NHS. I think quite similar to some of what Mariam said is sort of customer meetings. So quite often either in the office or going to different hospitals to meet our customers, finding out if there are any sort of products that they need that we don't have, and then feeding that back into our product development team. So if there's some sort of specialist dietary meals that are needed that nobody's doing or that we could be doing better, is feeding that back in. So a lot of it working for food manufacturer sort of centres around product development. So it could be food tastings when new products are being developed. Then at the end of the process, sort of marketing, getting involved with that. A lot of sort of horizon scanning with legislation, making sure that we are sort of complying with all the regulations that we need to, and especially in terms of marketing, there's sort of nutrition and health claims, so things you can and can't say. So yeah, it could be like last week I had a meeting with Trading Standards. It was talking about new legislation coming out and hot topics like may contains allergens. Another week it might be the Vegan Society, so we have a lot of products registered with them. So, you know, meeting different partners, different agencies that we work with, as well as customers. Yeah, so those are sort of some of the main things. But yeah, it's a lot of variety and quite a fast pace as well.
Brilliant. So I think you've actually really nicely highlighted that actually there's lots of different career opportunities within the food and drink industry. And actually when you're first starting out, that can be really confusing as to which aspect that you want to go into. Have you got any tips for those who are at the beginning of their career about how they can look at all those different areas to find the one that actually sparks that light in them? So Ruth, should we start with you this and we'll go?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, try to network, like try to reach out to people who are already working in industry, either directly or through events like this, social media, LinkedIn, things like that. Maybe joining different associations. So I know that the BDA, if you're a student dietitian, you can join a specialist group free for a year. So maybe trying to meet people that way and find out a bit more about the role. Because I think there are so many opportunities and there's so many sort of different sectors and then different roles within it. So I think it's thinking about your skill set and what you think you would enjoy as well, and what, you know, trying to sort of find out then what opportunities exist and trying to sort of go down that path.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think when I first started out, because as you say, there is so much variety, sometimes it is hard to know which avenue to go down. So I think get yourself out there. Don't be afraid to attend events like you're doing now. You know, connect with people on LinkedIn, even on social media as well. Like, don't be afraid to reach out and just say hi. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, transactional conversation. It can actually just be about learning about people's careers and their experiences, and the knowledge that you absorb from those conversations can help guide you in terms of your next steps and where to go with your career. And I'd also say, yeah, social media can be a fantastic tool for looking at the types of careers that are available. So one thing I found when I first started is that a lot of the conventional kind of nutritionist and dietitian kind of titles weren't necessarily as available as I thought they were. And when I looked into it a bit more, I realised that the titles can be quite varied. So, for example, you know, a lot of nutrition roles are now evolving into combined roles of sustainability. So, you know, it might be something that's labelled completely different to what you would expect it to be. So kind of health and sustainability manager rather than nutritionist. Or, you know, one of my first roles in the industry was medical affairs advisor, and I wouldn't have even thought that was a role. And it's only by talking to people and putting myself out there that I realised then that these roles are available. So, you know, go on LinkedIn, follow the companies that you like and you'd love to work for, see the types of jobs that they're putting out. And you can use tactical things like alerts and stuff so you don't miss it. And that can really help kind of formulate, you know, what types of roles are out there and what might interest you.
Yeah, I think they've covered most of it. I think the only thing I would add is if you're able to do an internship, placement, just try and get some work experience. It's one way to sort of help yourself. Because when you're in a company, say like Midlands Farm, or even working with Corinne or Ruth, you could either be a product developer, you could work in R&D, you could work in technical, you couldn't realize that, oh yes, you love food, but you want to do the sales part of it. So try and get as much experience in, even if it's a 3 months internship, a part-time internship, try and get it, because it helps your CV as well. But it also helps you decide where you enjoy and where you think you fit in the industry.
I think that's a really good one. Actually, there's nothing wrong with just giving something a try.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, you can take a sideways step and move somewhere else, but you will always gain some skills from that.
Yeah.
And I thought that's actually also a really good point, Corinne, about the job title. Job titles now are sometimes weird and wonderful. We've seen some really unusual ones. But they can also be controlled by the organisation who have, for example, a set title at that level, irrespective of what field you're going into. So remembering to use those keyword searches and searching the job description rather than the actual job title can be really helpful. But it was also interesting when you were talking about the sort of skills you can bring to it. We bring into our work our soft skills as well as our nutrition knowledge. And actually that can sometimes be the difference between those who are successful at interview and those who aren't. Which soft skill do you think that actually would be most valuable in your role? So, Corinne, I'm going to start with you this time.
Yeah, that's a great question. The word that comes to mind immediately is communication. So I think, as a clinical dietitian, communication was really important to be able to communicate with different types of patients and groups, and that's 100% followed through to my role now. So not only in the way that I talk to people and build interpersonal relationships at work, because obviously running a business, you need to be able to put yourself out there and meet people and have that sort of good conversation with people. And the other, side of it is obviously that written side. So, can you write a piece of, health writing or, social media? And that word communication really kind of goes, there's such a wide range of skills within that subsection of communication. So, yeah, I probably would say that's my biggest learning so far.
That's a really valid point, isn't it? You can be the most academic and the wonderful person, but if you can't explain it, and actually that can be a barrier.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Miriam, what did you find?
Being personable, because you can be smart, like Karen said, you could know everything in the food industry, but if someone doesn't think you can fit in the team and fit in the culture, they're not going to choose you. So you need to be able to show flexibility, you need to be able to show you can take a laugh, but at the same time you can be stern. So you have to show that you know how to have serious conversations, but also be interested in people. So if you go into an interview, for example, what I do is after an interview, the first question, when I'm asked to ask the interviewer a question, the first thing I ask is also, are you a tea or coffee drinker? So it's not about the job anymore. It's, I want to get to know you. So when you go home and you're thinking about, the people I interviewed today, I would stand out because I asked you something about yourself.
That's a really nice one. I'd love somebody to ask that.
Yeah.
But I think it actually is part of your thing when you're interviewing people is the person a fit for my team?
Yeah.
Rather than just, you might have two people who can both do the job well, but who's going to fit?
Yeah, because you can teach people how to do the job, but you can't teach somebody to be nice.
Yeah.
Really?
I think I would say probably prioritization. So like Corinne, I started my career in the NHS as a clinical dietitian, and I think that was quite helpful because I got used to managing quite a big caseload and having to prioritize when everything seems like a priority. And I think when you work in a fast-paced environment, that's always going to be sort of a necessity. So yeah, I think it was quite a good place to start because it's a transferable skill. But I think if in any way that you can sort of get that experience, I think that will be helpful because you're always going to have competing priorities and you have to sort of learn how to best sort of juggle that and manage that.
Okay, so following on from that one, I
Can
think
I just add, just
yeah.
based on what she said, it just came to me. I know you might be thinking, but I don't have work experience. How do I show that I'm flexible? Your teamwork during a course, you do things, so you show it there how you helped step in for somebody when the person was sick. So there are little things you can show in your everyday that can help your interviews.
That's a really good point. There are lots of things that you'll do that aren't necessarily in your work environment. It could be in your personal life, it could be in volunteering. If you're part of a club, a fitness group or anything, actually maybe if you're coordinating the competition program, well actually that's being able to show you've got event organisation.
Yeah.
So you can bring in those other parts of it, and especially around like customer service skills. If you've worked in a shop, you've been dealing with the public, you've had a tough time if you've been dealing with it. So it actually means that you can help people to understand information as well. So linked to that, I'm going to ask you, what has been the biggest challenge that you have found along in your role now, but also within your careers? So Mariam, let's start down with you.
People management. I would say it's a big one because you need to. So I have a team of 4, but the way I talk to A is not the same way I can talk to B. So even when you have team conversations and you're trying to get a message across, you need to understand each person's way of understanding, but also each person's preferred way of communication. So I would say for me, it is people management. It's a tricky one.
For me, I think there's two kind of things. I think there's so much going on in the food and drink industry, and that's part of the reason why I love working in this space, because it's so dynamic and no one day is the same. But sometimes I feel slightly overwhelmed with how much stuff is going on, and I kind of think, how am I going to manage keeping up with all of the guidelines and research and social media. And I think it's the way that I've overcome that is, and I'm still not perfect by all means, is just being really, tactical with who I'm following, setting alerts, signing up to newsletters so that information is delivered straight to your inbox, and actually putting aside time for myself to, one afternoon a week to actually go through people on LinkedIn and see what they're saying, and do a little bit of my own time to kind of have that CPD. So I think finding time to take it all in. And then I think building on what we said before, just that kind of initially that confusion when I was, going from an NHS to industry role, knowing where to go. And I think it's just kind of mirroring what we said there in terms of, I really found that speaking to people and getting myself out there, I mean, even you guys coming to this event today shows that you're already being proactive. So those things like speak volumes when it comes to finding your way and standing out of the crowd. So just continue to keep getting yourself out there, and it'll become clear eventually, I promise.
Ruth, what have you found as your biggest challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment, in terms of the day job, I think there's a big challenge in industry right now between sort of sustainability and food standards, and trying to sort of achieve the goals that every company wants to achieve right now, and then the conflict with the cost of living and inflation right now. So I think for me, it feels very much like sometimes like there's a bit of a compromise, and it's you can't always afford to achieve all of the goals that you may have set, and that can be challenging. So I think it's just a difficult time right now in industry, and that we're trying to sort of wade through it, and hopefully the tide will turn in the next year or so. But yeah, I think right now, especially when we need to be thinking about the planet, I think it's a really tough time just achieving those sustainability goals right now.
Brilliant, thank you. I think actually that was quite interesting when you were talking about that. It was that tightrope and balancing the things.
Yeah.
And actually, when you are working with industry and you are in that setting, there can sometimes be those conflicts between your professional standards and the business's needs. How do you balance those to make sure that you're still holding your professional integrity, but also meeting the business's needs? Corin, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I just lean into my professional networks, and I think, being registered with the HCPC, for example, so it's the Health and Care Professions Council, that's the official body for healthcare professionals, making sure that I'm maintaining that side of my work, and then also leaning into the British Dietetic Association side of my work as well. So having that network of professionals around me to ensure that, if I do have some queries around whether I'm staying in, maintain that integrity, has really helped in future. So yeah, just building on that network, I think, and being part of those groups.
Miriam.
I'm thinking of how to answer that question. I would say it is having honest conversations with, I think my job is quite different from theirs. She's self-employed, dietitians, but I work for a company where I report to somebody who reports to somebody who then reports to somebody else. So it's understanding exactly what the final business goal is and how it fits into my personal goals and my integrity, and how, so if at the end of the day we all want to get to that door, or all they're telling me is jump through the chairs and I could go that way, which is safe, I would try and convince that that's the way to go. So it's having conversations and understanding what other avenues you can take and to get to that same goal, or what's the best way to get, or an alternative goal that might be better for everyone as well.
Ruth.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would share some of your comments as well. Definitely, like, honest, hard conversations, and leaning into networks and other colleagues as well, and knowing your values. And I think it's, if you feel that you're still making progress, maybe it's slower than you want, but you're still going the right direction, then, I think that can feel, like you're still staying true to your values, your personal values, and the business is still going the right direction, just maybe slower. So, I can't really think of anything else to add to it, but
And I think what you said, Corinne, as well, it's really true, is lean in also onto your regulatory bodies. If you're not sure if something's within what you can and can't do, if you're a dietitian, you'll be registered with the HCPC. Nutritionist, you'll be with the AFN. If you're a food technologist, you'll be IFST. Go to a regulatory body. They will have somebody there who'll be able to talk it through with you and give you that confidence that, yes, that's within your remit, or actually, no, that's not, and therefore they can sometimes support you to explain that to your employer, so you can get that balance there. So one of the things she said was really nice about having those open and honest conversations. But sometimes, I don't know, I've suffered for this all my career, and I feel I'm a bit longer in the tooth now. I'm a bit there, done it for a bit, I've gone through. But I still suffer from imposter syndrome. I still question whether I'm the right person. And I have to remind myself, and I think what I've done, how do you manage that? So, Ruth, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think networks and associations are good. So like Corinne, I'm on one of the BDA specialist group committees, and yeah, I think just having colleagues that you work with and meet up with regularly, you see the progress that you're making, and sometimes you have to sort of, get to certain milestones where you actually look back and realise what you've achieved, whether personally or as a group, and I think that kind of helps. Yeah, and I think it's just experience, as you kind of go through your career, you sort of realise when and doing events like this, actually, it's quite good, and sort of doing lectures, because you realise when you look back at where you started that actually you've come so far, you've learned so much, you've done so much, and I think it's just taking stock at certain intervals that you then realise sort of how far you've come.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Marianne. I'm going to come back to Corinne at the end, because you do a lot on social media, and that's where I think imposter syndrome can really...
Yeah, I'm literally, when you said that, I was like, oh my God, I struggle with this every day. So, yeah.
Marianne.
I don't think it goes away. Because I
Yeah.
think the more you grow in your career, you're going to have it at every stage. Because you're like, oh, I've cracked this now. Like, I just got promotion to be lead scientist. I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry for cussing. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But I think it's like Ruth said, but then you have conversations with people, or you ask a question at work and you answer it. They're like, I actually do know what I'm doing. So there are moments that help you realize that you're actually not an imposter, but you have to put in the work and actually genuinely love what you're doing, or I think you would always feel that way.
I think it's something innate into us as scientists, isn't it? That we know the more you know you don't know. So I think it kind of feeds into that. But social media is somewhere where you're actually doing it right out in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And that can be really intimidating at times. How do you start to overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I started doing more social media stuff, but by all means, I am not in any way an influencer. I don't have loads of followers at all, but I just knew that social media it's a free tool, and why not use it, especially if you're using it to advance your career and build your network. So I started during the pandemic doing things like, nutritional videos and recipes and stuff like that. And as my business has evolved, so has my social media and the extension of the channels that I use. But in terms of kind of doing lives, things like videos, sharing a bit of my life, I think I just find comfort in the fact that I know that everyone else is kind of feeling the same way. Everyone else is winging it as well. So, knowing that you're not an expert, but just having fun, trying it. And I enjoy those moments when someone can relate to what you're up to, or, you're on the way to an event, someone messages you and says, oh, that's so cool, I'm going to be there. It's that human connection. I think that's how you can swing it. So it doesn't feel as though it's like you versus the rest of the world. It's actually you're contributing to a community that you're a part of. But with the imposter syndrome, I think two things that have really helped with me is, number one, getting a mentor. I know sometimes it's not as easy as just finding a mentor, but you might have to go through a few people to get that person that's right for you. But there's opportunities through sort of Food Matters, another one's Flourish in Food, which I think are fantastic opportunities. And I know that the BDA and the AFN also work well with kind of setting you up with a mentor. And especially as part of this industry group for dietitians, mentorship is definitely something we want to work on, so that, budding students and even people that are 10 years into their career have that access to a mentor, because it just really helps to build your confidence and provide clarity on certain situations in your career. And the other thing that I'd say is my favourite thing is a smile file. So I don't know if you've heard of this expression before, but when someone emails you to say like, you did a really good job, or like even just something like, great work, doesn't even have to be a really extensive long paragraph of how well you've done, but I just save it in something called a smile file on my computer, and when I'm having a really crappy day, I just look at it and think, actually I can do this, and it just really helps. So I definitely recommend getting yourself a smile file.
Brilliant. And I think it is really, do you know what? We all suffer from it. It's there. I spoke to one of my professors who's been around for over 50 years, and he says he still suffers from it. And actually, I'll tell you what, it's really boosts your confidence when they then ask you for the answer for something, and you sort of think, you've cracked it. But I think it's normal, and actually accepting that and acknowledging it's going to be part of that actually is really quite humbling as well, and helps us to keep in track of what we're doing. But actually, I think the mentoring bit is a really good point. I know as a mentor, I get as much out of mentoring as what the mentor gets. So it's a really good symbiotic relationship. So it helps for your CPD and things like that. And I know, for example, at the AFN, they've got the A-Nutra support framework coming in, and there's going to be a lot of resources around there around mentoring. So it is something that's really beneficial throughout your career. So you might start with a mentor who's more senior to you, and as you go through, you'll get a peer mentor, because we all have different knowledge and skills, so we can always support each other. So those are all really interesting. But actually, I want to go back to the beginning as well. What made you even consider a career in nutrition? What is that thing that lights and gives you that spark?
Who wants to take that?
So we'll go through.
Who's going to start?
Do you want to go? So we'll start with you, sorry.
Okay, sure, sorry. So I think for me, I was just always interested in health. I sort of come from quite a long line of healthcare professionals in my family, and I think I was definitely too squeamish to go down the sort of medical or nursing route. And I sort of found out about dietetics when I was at school, and it just seemed like a really interesting career, sort of helping others and also myself in the process learn about nutrition, about how to make good food choices and a healthy lifestyle. So that was kind of what got me into it. And as I say, I started off my career doing clinical work, which I enjoyed, but I didn't feel like I was going to do that forever, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to sort of go into next. And then I actually got an opportunity where a friend was sort of covering the role that I'm in now, but didn't want to do that for very long. So I was offered, to try the position, and that was sort of how I got into the food industry. And I sort of never looked back, just really enjoyed it, and feel like that is sort of where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, so same, always loved health and science, and my mum's a nurse, so also saw how great it was to be in that role where you could actually help someone and improve their health. So I've always been influenced by that. And then when it came to the time of college, I just literally did not know where to go. I was really confused, and I feel like you're put under a lot of pressure at that time in your life, and you're not actually sure what to do. So you often just go for something that you think is what you want. And I kind of was like, no, I'm just going to take a year out. So I actually took a year out and just worked, earned some money, whatever. And then during that time, my mum was like, come on, let's try some different stuff. So we went to a few events, and one of them was the Nutrition and Health Conference. I don't think it exists still at the moment, but I kind of stepped in and I saw these amazing companies like the Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, and just completely fell in love with the whole atmosphere and the potential to not only just impact one person's life, but hundreds of thousands of people through food. And I'd already loved food as well. So when I spoke to someone, because I'd done the work experience at hospital and I really enjoyed that, I decided to go down the clinical dietetics route, just in case, I did want to do the NHS route. And, very much might still go down that route one day, who knows, but wanted to try it. And then whilst I was at university, towards the end of my kind of degree, I decided that I did still want to do the industry thing. So got an internship at the Detox Kitchen during my summer in the last year of university. And then from then on thought, okay, I still have a passion for this. So did the clinical dietetics after uni, and then sort of grounded my skills, and then went on to the food industry. So I think it has been a little bit of a journey, and the reason I shared that is because it was a little bit here, there, trying different things. But it's just, it's been, I've always known that I wanted to work in the food industry, and I've always had that passion. So
Nice. Oh, wow. think I was studying roof mine earlier this morning. So I studied microbiology for my undergrad, and there was only one part of the course I loved, which was food microbiology. And I always loved food, but I'm a very picky eater. But I wanted to understand more about it and understand more about my gut. And I then did a master's in food science and nutrition, which I loved even more. And I wanted to understand more about research. And I then went to do a PhD, crazy, in food science and chemistry. And that's where I would say I finally decided exactly what I wanted to do. So I knew I definitely wanted to be in development. I didn't like the technical side of specifications, but I like to get my hands into things and make a product. Because it's nice when you make a product and then you go into a store and it's there. And I think it's the good thing about the food industry is you can actually see the impact straight away on people, because people are buying that and you're like, oh, I made that and someone's eating it and they love it, great. So that was sort of my route into the industry.
Brilliant. Well, I hope you can see that these people are really passionate about what they do, and hopefully some of that's gone across to you, and actually you've looked and seen there's lots of variety of activities that you can get into. So whether you're somebody who likes legislation and wants to go into the regulatory side, or you want to be down in the pure product development, there's all those different opportunities there. Now our speakers will be in the hub for you after this session, so if you want to come and ask them any direct questions specifically to them, you want to pick their brains, please do. They are there for you, and all the speakers today will be available. I want to say thank you to you for sharing that and being so honest with us, because actually sometimes we have a bit of a rose-tinted view, don't we, of everything's amazing, and the reality is actually there are challenges along the way, and understanding that is really helpful. So I'm going to say thank you to all of you. I hope you have found it useful. As I say, please remember to come and have a chat to them if you've got any specific questions that you want to ask. Use your social medias to put the information out there as well. Contact people on social media and link into them, because they'll be very happy to share their nuggets of information with you. So thank you for this session. We will make our way out after the session so that they can reset the room ready for the next session. So thank you, and I hope you can give me a round of applause for our fantastic speakers.